Hey there, audit and fraud friends and family. It's been a while, hey? Listen, um, have you ever looked at a bank statement or a credit card bill or receipt or invoice or anything like that? Maybe it was an Amazon order and you thought to yourself, wait a minute, what is this? And not because you immediately suspected fraud and not even because you thought that maybe somebody stole your money, but it was because something just didn't feel right. Maybe the vendor looked unfamiliar, or maybe the amount was oddly specific. Maybe the description said one thing, but your memory, you remembered something else altogether. Or maybe, here's the big one, or maybe that thing that you bought online, the charge actually showed up under a different name when it hit your credit card statement. And so most of the time when this happens, it ends up being nothing because, it's pretty customary for a restaurant to use a different merchant name, or they go by the parent company that owns the company, and then the charge clears a few days later and you don't think anything about it. Now, what if that mismatch actually is a problem? What if it's just a thread, and if you pull that thread, this bigger thing unravels? If you've ever looked at something small on your statement and then it turned out to be something large, you're going to want to stick around today because, well, I say this every week because this one is just crazy, right? Are you ready? Let's go.
Welcome to the Friday Fraudster podcast. Join them as they discuss sad, funny, and sometimes disturbing fraud stories. Be sure to catch past episodes on your favorite podcasting platform or go to www.fridayfraudster.com.
All right, you guys, you heard the intro. Look, I'm just going to bring them up this week. I'm going to bring them up, and here's what I'm going to say. Okay, so welcome back. It's been a few weeks, right? I've been traveling a lot, but before we get into today's story, I just want to ask Thomas and Christine. You know that feeling you have when something just doesn't look right? It doesn't necessarily scream fraud, but it doesn't look right. Have you ever gotten a charge on something, whether it was your bank, your credit card, or whatever, and you look at the receipt, you look at the transaction, and you really don't remember it because maybe the name is different from what you remember purchasing? Has that ever happened to you guys?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it's a different name. Sometimes you look at it like I was never in, Monaco.
So wait, when that happens though, what's the first thing you all do?
I first double check to make sure my daughter didn't charge it.
I was gonna say, yeah, the first thing I would do is text my wife.
Then I check my emails to make sure, like I'll check an email to see if like I purchased something, I got a confirmation that it was about the same amount and I'm just not recognizing the name on the charge.
Ah, okay.
And then after that, I claim it's fraud.
Now, wait a minute. So you guys don't just take the vendor name and Google it?
Oh.
That's like the first thing I do is I Google it. So like, for example, there's this, so, we get these software deals all the time and we try different things. That's why most of us are trying AI and stuff. And so there's this one company called JV Zoom or something like that. Apparently they own a bunch of different software. And one time, 5 years ago, I purchased something through them and then it went defunct or whatever. And then all of a sudden, 5 years later, I get this thing, JV Zoom, on my credit card. I'm like, wait a minute, what is this? And so I Google it and I realize what it is. And I realize it is a fraudulent charge, but it's not their fault. Somebody tried to use my card to purchase something through them. But when I see something strange, the very first thing I do is I Google it because I'm just curious,
You're using your resources.
That's true. Very true. So what about you, Thomas? What if the wife says, "No, it wasn't me"?
Sorry, I was listening to the thunder all of a sudden popping up over here. Yeah, if it's confirmed that yeah, yeah, we're in the Houston area and yet you're like 80 miles away from me. Uh, how's the weather down there? Sorry. So
Bright and
yeah,
sunny.
if it's yeah, it's thundering here. If it's yeah, if it's something that's questionable, the first thing we do, we double check the accounts to make sure there's no other questionable, account, activity, and then we immediately contact the bank. As soon as we know, yeah, this is not something legit. Now, if it's legit or something like what you said, you spend it, somewhere, and then a couple of years later, all of a sudden there's a renewal or something. Or I hate when you get the annual renewals and you don't get any kind of a warning ahead of time. Hey, we don't forget, the renewal's coming up. I'll cancel those almost immediately and demand a refund if I don't get some kind of a notification. But I always tell people that I mentor and I talk to, you've got to check the accounts. You got to check your accounts once a day. You have an app on your phone. There's no reason not to just check, take a quick glance.
Or set up alerts. I have alerts set up to if a charge come through that's above a certain dollar amount, then it sends me an email with the transaction description and the amount. Then again, there's not much activity going through my account, so
No, I have that too. I have that too.
Well, and so this is the thing about it, right? Because like in real life, we don't get like the movie version of fraud. There's not always somebody standing there with a trench coat on. There's not always a secret offshore account, and there's also not always somebody shredding documents while the auditors walk down the hall a la Enron. Sometimes it just starts really, really small where one record doesn't match another record. One document says this, another document says that.
Yeah.
And then what happens, I think, especially in corporations, since we have this thing called materiality thresholds, we'll oftentimes explain things away. We'll say it's probably timing, or maybe it's just a description issue, or we'll label it as a system issue. So I think that's what happens a lot in the corporate sector, right? But I also think that is exactly what makes today's story so interesting, because this case appears to have cracked wide open, or at least took a major turn because of that exact kind of mismatch. A record said one thing, and then another record said something else, and then someone pulled that proverbial thread, and then everything got real big. Let's talk about it. So today takes us to Jackson Area Federal Credit Union in Mississippi. Now, before we get too far into it, I want to make clear this is not a criminal conviction story. I hear the thunder now, man. This is not a criminal conviction story. Right now, it is a civil matter. And the civil matter has been filed by the National Credit Union Administration Board. Now they're acting as conservator for the Jackson Area Federal Credit Union, but we'll talk about what that means in a minute. So even with that caveat, though, the allegations are wild. Again, not a criminal charge yet, just civil. So here's what happened. A former CFO who later became the president and CFO, and her husband, and a former branch manager. It involves luxury homes, high-end cars, designer jewelry, large credit card payments, and an alleged financial hole of $95 million. That's right. The bank was in the hole, $95 million. And I know that number sounds big, but that's not the one that surprised me. Okay. We're going to talk about the one that really surprised me. The one that surprised me was a wire transfer for $378,780. Here's why. Christine, you might like this one.
Okay.
Here's why, though. So internal paperwork alleged that money was going to Raymond James, right, for investments or whatnot. And that matters because Raymond James didn't immediately sound like a strange name for a financial institution to be sending $378,000 to, right?
No.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the money actually went to Tiffany and Company, as in jewelry, as in luxury jewelry.
What about the teddy bear?
Oh, I didn't see a Louis Vuitton teddy bear on this one. But somebody bought. How much jewelry could you buy with $378,000?
I don't own any Tiffany's, so I don't know.
I know someone named Tiffany.
You do. Well, I mean, I don't know how much is a pair of like just their silver earrings. It's got to be like $3-4 grand, I would think.
I don't know. Oh, oh. But here's the question, though: how in the world would a bank be able to transfer money to Tiffany? Like, how does that even work?
It
Tiffany.
depends on the size. It depends on the size credit union and how many people you need. So you at least need one person to enter a wire transfer into your wire transfer system. So that could be through a corporate credit union. It could be through their corporate bank. So where the credit union is actually banking. And then a second person who has approval authority would review the wire and do the final approval and send it out. And then that settlement would just come out of your corporate account where it was sitting.
Ah, okay. So here's what happened. According to a report from the National Credit Union Association in June of 2024, they asked the Corporate American Credit Union to look at certain anomalies at Jackson Area Federal Credit Union, including this wire transfer. And so now Corporate America Credit Union is important because it's not just another like internal file sitting at the credit union. It was like a corporate credit union, basically a credit union for credit unions, providing services like processing wires and ACH activity. Is that right? Do I got that right so far, Christine?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. See, I did my research. Now, so what happened was the CACU, Corporate America Credit Union, they looked at their records and the beneficiary showed Tiffany and Company, but the records at Jackson Credit Union showed Raymond James. And so those two things were mismatched. And they said, wait a minute, something ain't right here.
Well, and another thing, so did they say when that purchase to Tiffany's was completed?
I think it was 2024 where they did say, I just don't have it in front of me. But I think it was 2024.
Okay. So another thing I didn't even think of. So NCUA, being the regulator, the insurer, they have access to what are called quarterly call reports. So every quarter, credit unions have to submit, it's literally all information on the credit union. So my biggest thing would have been if I was an examiner and I pulled that as a wire, or if I was just looking at their call report, what if I'm seeing this wire transfer for $375,000, considering as of March of this year, they only had $159,000 in investments for available for sale debt securities. So if I'm seeing that they did this purchase and that is not replicated in their call report, I am digging. It's for $375,000 purchase, if that's supposed to be an investment.
Wait, they only had how much in investments?
590,000 as of the end of March, but let me go back to December. And you can pull this. Anybody can pull this. This is public information. You can pull it for any credit union that is insured by NCUA. Oh, let me look. They only have 30, like I can tell from this, they only have 32 employees. So now you already know your controls aren't going to be as well mitigated because you have people doing multiple jobs and they've got 3 branches.
Wow. So that one wire to Tiffany's was more than half of the amount that they had invested.
Yeah, so there was a lot of changes. End of December 2024, their total sum of investments was $6.5 million. Oh, maybe it wasn't that big of a difference. By the end of March, it was down to 5.1.
Wow.
But still, like they're like them just looking at those comparables, might have triggered them to look at that.
Wow. I'm glad you said that because remember, we were trying to. So, guys, I told you we talked backstage, right? We were trying to figure out what sparked the concern because it is definitely a good catch and a good call, a good concern, but we couldn't figure out how, like, what tipped them off. And I poured through several news articles, couldn't find what tipped them off or anything like that. So, okay, so let's talk about this. At the center of this complaint is Leah Bridges. And according to the National Credit Union Association complaint, she had worked there for years and then was promoted to CFO and then was promoted to CEO. And I think that matters because this is not a story about someone who had limited access and then found one weak control and exploited this. This is allegedly someone who understood the institution, the accounting, the systems, the authority, and everything. And according to the complaint, she was responsible for, check this out, preparing and signing financial statements submitted to the National Credit Union Association. She performed account reconciliation for wire transfers, and she had the ability to initiate and authorize wire transfers.
There you go. We already know how she did it. Zero oversight.
Now,
I don't know. I think it's because, like, okay, being in the industry, we joke around, right? Because it's like when we talk about these stories, it's like, oh my God, they got away from so much money. And it's like, if I had the power to initiate and approve a wire transfer and do the reconciliation, I would be in a country that had zero extradition. Like, now I'm not. Number one, I don't have any controls at all. Number two, I would never do that because I love my freedom. But all of that for Tiffany's.
Right. Well, and here's where
a whole lot more than Tiffany's, but yeah,
it was. It was a whole lot more than Tiffany's. We'll get to the full list in a minute, but here's where it got even stranger, though. So, also involved allegedly her husband and a branch manager who happened to be a friend. But let's talk about how they did it allegedly, because this wasn't a case where someone just wrote a check to themselves. So the allegation is a whole lot more layered than that. According to the complaint, what they did was they had false deposit entries that were manually entered into share account balances belonging to the husband and wife. So share account balances for credit unions are the equivalent of savings account balances at traditional banks. So the entries allegedly used transaction codes called SDIT, which signified a share deposit. Now, the descriptions allegedly begin with EFT, meaning electronic funds transfer. So on the surface, it looked like the money could have been coming electronically from outside sources into the husband and wife accounts. But the complaint also says that those entries listed sources like Acorns Investing, JP Morgan Chase, American Express. So it looked like there was money coming in from outside sources. Unfortunately, what was happening was they were just transferring money from the general ledger of the bank into their personal accounts. So they made it look like the money was coming from the outside. And if you looked at the journal entry description, it looked like an EFT, but it was an internal transfer from inside the bank.
Yeah. As you're like talking about that stuff, I'm sitting here going, yeah, I know what report they were looking at. Yep. I know what report they were looking at. And it's not even just that. Like, we sit here and talk about how much technology we have in the private sector, everything else. And Seaway has that. You literally are just giving them data after data after data. Their software platform runs analytics and specifically calls things out that don't look right. So it could have been that. And Rob, you made a comment. She could enter, authorize, and she reconciled. I could only imagine whoever was put either over their payment services or accounting for their exam would have dug into that. I don't see why they wouldn't have.
Yeah, that's what I would think, because that would be a huge red flag. Just right up front. But get this now. So now think about this though. If she transferred funds from the bank's internal records into her and her husband's bank accounts, then that means that some money would have to be missing from the bank. So here's what she did, allegedly. The complaint says that she concealed the missing funds by overstating the amount that their general ledger, uh, overstating general ledger that was supposedly on deposit or in transit from a corporate credit union. So
Mhm.
they would say, okay, this is how much money we have at another credit union, or they would say, this is how much money is in transit. And we all know if someone just did a simple confirmation, you send a confirmation letter to that other credit union and say, how much are you showing that we have there? That would have actually caught that.
Mhm.
There's so many controls not in place, right? It feels like there were no controls in place. They had no care at all, especially with how long this went on. And what do they not know about other people too? As I'm losing my voice, apparently.
Well, and that's the
Yeah.
other thing for how much is missing. Like, is she the only one? Because if she, let's say she found out somebody else was doing something, she ain't gonna speak up
Mm,
because then it would just uncover her fraud.
Good point.
true.
Because
True.
there was an actual credit union in Hawaii that had that happen. The 3 single employees, all 3 of them were stealing, and none of them
Ooh.
knew the other 2 were doing it.
Wait, they didn't just get together and say, hey, man, let's just.
No. So they were all stealing.
Wow. Wow. Now that's amazing. And you know what? I'll save that for later. Wow.
Yeah, that's a good point, though. It's like you catch somebody, you're like, well, I can't say anything.
It makes me wonder, like, and it's allegedly, like, I wonder if her husband actually knew. But for how much they were spending, I would be surprised that he didn't.
Oh, he had to have known because you guys want to hear what they spent it on. Of course, they want to hear what they spent it on. Okay.
But before you go through that list, it is a nice change of pace that they're like actually going after the spouse, because there's so many times where the spouse is like, oh, I didn't know anything. You're like, come on, but they just could never get any kind of enough evidence or proof of it. So it's a breath of fresh air in a way that they're actually going after the spouse too in this case.
So this is the part that got me too. The complaint alleges that more than $15 million went to her personal credit card bills between January 2025 and March of 2026, and that included more than $14 million to American Express. Now think about that, $14 million in a little over a year.
See, now I'm sitting here going, there could have been another thing that happened. So she was making all those payments towards her credit card, right? What's the one thing your credit card always knows about you and asks you to update every single year? How much money you make a year, right?
Oh, your income, yeah.
Yeah, but they never confirm it though, do they?
No. They don't. But is that suspicious activity under BSA AML that credit card company may have to report on if she's making $15 million in payments on a credit card and she's only bringing in $120,000 a year?
Here's the thing that I'm wondering though, because I don't know how seriously they take that information. So they use it to determine what the credit limit they're going to give you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so good old Reddit, you can find almost any and everything on Reddit. I look at some of the forums, especially those in the banking industry and credit and stuff, and there are people that say they just lie all the time about how much they make. So to Thomas's point, they don't verify it. So, whether hers was low or high, I don't think they use it for anything other than, oh, it's just a litmus test to see what kind of credit limit we're going to give you. And if you get a high credit limit and you happen to pay it off, I don't think they care.
Yeah, as long as you pay it.
Yeah, as long as they get their money.
We don't
Yeah.
care if we're taking your dirty money. We're helping you launder it into the system.
But back to the point that you made, though, should they be somewhat responsible? Because that should look odd if she didn't have that much coming through previously, and then all of a sudden, bam, there's a lot coming through.
Yeah.
But if she, she had the title of CFO and then she had the title of the CEO. And to be honest, whenever I saw her salary, I was shocked that it was as low as it is, even though it's a solid salary. But I was expecting bigger when you have the CEO title. So,
Oh wait, what was her salary?
I want to say I saw something like 193 or 187,000.
It's because of their asset size.
Yeah,
yeah,
100%.
and I get that. It's just layman, in the outside of the credit union world, I just see CEO, and I would expect it to be, or at least bonus potential, that kind of thing, to be a lot higher.
So look, the complaint also alleged that $3.3 million in checks went to Brooks Collection, which is a fine luxury jewelry and handbag store in Jackson, Mississippi. But that's not all. Let me go back up to my notes because I've got
more.
Oh boy, there's a lot more. Where are my notes? I've got some detailed notes on this one because I was like, wait, what? Okay. So, overall, the complaint alleges that $26.8 million was transferred from the credit union's account to their to their accounts, their share accounts. Among that, though, 66,000 went directly from the credit union to purchase a Tesla. We already talked about the 378,000 for Tiffany's. Then there was, I said 15 million to her personal credit card. She had another 68,000 to Chase. She had $531,000 to Apple Card.
Wait, what was that number to the Apple Card?
Wait, did I get the wrong number? Hold on.
Well, no, I just didn't hear the whole thing.
$531,000 to Apple Card.
That's a lot of Angry Birds.
Right?
Is that all gaming money?
I mean, with Apple Card, don't you load it with cash and you can use it at various locations? So there's no telling where that went, right?
Well, yeah, people take Apple Pay. I assume that'll work through Apple Pay. So
right.
Yeah, it's a variety of things. But I can't see them being able to trace it very well.
Yeah. She had property in Honduras. She took renovations on that property in Honduras. At least 30 designer bags, jewelry, a Rolex, private travel.
Well, and I'm like looking at some because I'm trying to find. I was curious on what she looked like, and everybody, don't they get audited? How is this not uncovered? There is that. So we said this was over several years, right? Materiality threshold. You always have that for any audit that you have. If it's done over a long period of time and done in smaller sections, it's less likely to break that materiality threshold. And they did it right, going through and essentially covering it up using falsified investments. I mean, that's what financial institutions do when they have a lot of liquidity left. They want their money to still earn money, so they put it in investments if they can't lend it out.
Yeah, but they didn't have a lot of liquidity left, though. They were so small. I think that's the...
I was trying to pull up their FPR, their financial performance report.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see what they had for a loan to share ratio. And for some reason, my computer doesn't want to pull it up.
Now, they were able to trace it back to some parts happening around as early as 2015, they think, But,
yeah, it was going on for a long time.
Unless ChatGPT is failing me, they were at a 34% loan to share ratio.
Oh.
So only 30, and right now, financial institutions are sitting around 95.
Yeah, so that's not bad.
No, that's actually horrible. How are you making any money?
Oh, well, but see, they could have been lending it or investing it though, right? You're saying loan to share.
Yeah,
So
so
if
if their
they,
loan to share is so low, then that other 70 or 65% would have to be in investments.
yeah, and that's what I was saying. If it were in investments, then that's because which one do you put it in? Do you loan it or do you invest it? But yeah,
You always want to try loaning it.
yeah, more
Because
interest higher.
so because essentially whatever you are loaning it out to compared to what you're paying on your deposits, that's your
Yep.
net interest margin.
Net
That's what
interest
you're
margin.
making. Yep. That's what the financial institution's making to pay employees, run the branches, stuff like that. So you always want to try to get that largest one because then you can start investing in new branches or technology but that just seems that's like extremely low.
But is it for Jackson, Mississippi? You know, I'm thinking about a bank that small. I and so here's my read on it. I'm thinking that they're probably a very conservative credit union that doesn't lend out a whole lot. And they since they only had two branches and they were in Jackson, the population is not that large. So to me, it would make sense to have a lot more investments because of where they are and their size. So the Raymond James would make sense to me.
I don't know. I think it's more of the CEOs paying more attention to where they're going to be traveling next instead of trying to make the credit union profitable.
Oh, that's 100% the case. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah. Like 100%. But I'm just thinking for a two branch operation in the capital of Mississippi, I don't think they could compete with other lenders. That's why I think it was what it was. That's why I was surprised it was even that high. Because if I'm sitting here in Jackson, Mississippi, and I get to choose between you all and someone else, I'm betting I could get a better rate than you're going to give me because you're so small. Now, granted, they're going to be brokering it out, right? Most likely. But
They could be catering to lower income or
yeah,
bad
there you go.
credit areas because they're now normally, so I don't know, I can't validate this, but normally the interest rates that they have listed on their call report is like what that loan product averages based across that whole entire portfolio. So not everybody might have the same interest rate,
Yeah.
but they have it listed for their used vehicles at 14% and their new vehicles at 8%. And that was at the end of 2024.
See, that's what I'm saying. Think about it. That's a high. Woo! Wow.
And they have at least over $1 million in delinquency between 30 and 180 days delinquent.
Wow. Yeah, my lending numbers would be low too. Cause yeah, I think you're right though. It sounds like they might be catering to a population with less than stellar credit.
Which is okay, because I mean, still those interest rates for somebody who does not have good credit is still really good interest rates. You could be paying 27% at the local auto lot that's on the corner.
Oh, for sure. But that delinquency rate is out of control. That is wow.
Yeah, for some reason it's not pulling up that FPR.
Well, I hate to log off early, but I am meeting a bunch of 10th graders at an arcade here in town. So anybody in the Woodlands area or the Clear Lake area, go to the game preserve and enjoy some old school video games.
Stay dry.
Yeah, it started pouring down just a minute ago.
It's still sunny over here, man. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's a big old red cell right over my area right now. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
See y'all later. Have a good weekend.
Take care.
All right, see ya. Yeah, I like this. So for those of you, Christine actually sent this story in, right? And I saw it and I said, yep, we'll do it. So if you have a story you want to see, send it in. So what I'm seeing too is they have 15,000 members, but total asset size is 162 million.
Mm-hmm.
So and you said the 38 employees. Now, after they lost the money, the Q1 of 2026 call report says that they only had 71 million in assets. So imagine going from 162 million to 71 million, and their total net worth is a negative 77 million, I think.
Because I believe they have to recognize that money's not there.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, like they have to make their financials correct. I'm sure with the story coming out, they probably had a run on deposits. So you got members that are pulling their money out.
Yep.
NCUA, you said they put them into a conservatorship. So NCUA is running it. The board management has all been kicked out, not allowed to come back. And NCUA is probably looking for another credit union to essentially come in and take over.
Yep.
And I would be surprised if you don't see criminal charges, because NCUA is probably already looking at doing a bond claim against them to recover that money. And then they'll probably formally press charges. Because nobody quote me on this. I don't know why. I feel like either if the individual was caught when it comes to NCUA, like that person can just essentially say, yep, go ahead and push out a bulletin that says I cannot work for the NCUA or any financial institution that's insured by the NCUA, or NCUA has to get, I believe, criminal charges or something to get them essentially expelled from ever serving for another credit union. I feel like I'm half wrong on that. It's been a while.
Which means you're probably half right? But
I'm hoping.
So I ran some numbers just out of curiosity, and I just wanted to see the average account balance per member before this happened and then after. So before, the 162 million at about 15,000 members was $10,434 average, account balance per member. After, though, $4,500. So on average, each member has about $4,500 in bank accounts there. To me, that number is very low. So that shows you just how bad of shape they're in.
Well, if you had anybody that happened to have anything on deposit, like I didn't look close enough. I don't know if they take like municipal deposits. So like sometimes credit unions can help serve like your county, stuff like that, for like your tax payments. Anybody who had over 250,000, I can almost guarantee you they pulled their money out, because if that credit union would go under, they would lose anything. It wouldn't be insured past the 250. Yep. Unless they had some kind of structuring. There is ways you can structure based on ownership to get more than that 250. But I wouldn't, like, if I was a member there, I honestly wouldn't be stressing too much. NCUA does a really good job on getting very financially stable institutions to take over credit unions that are like this, because they do not want the membership to lose any money. They also don't want to make an insurance claim if they don't have to. So they'll try to recover as much as they can.
Well, I think what's really interesting too is, so to your point, if your balance is under 250, you're covered. Based on what we just speculated, that maybe they served a population that has distressed credit, most of their members probably have under $250,000 in the account. So most of their customers are going to be made whole. To your point, if I had a lot of money, I would have pulled it out as soon as the first news article hit. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, and it does. I mean, we never want to see these stories. And the crazy thing is to sit here and think like this isn't the only active fraud probably being perpetrated at any, do you know what I'm saying, financial institution in the United States. There's stuff that's going on all the time. Sometimes it just takes a while to be found. It stinks. But it's also making sure your employees feel comfortable speaking up if they see something wrong. Like, I'm surprised that nobody else noticed this.
Yeah, that begs the question, did someone else notice and they got so much money that they had to pay some people off? Because that's a lot of money. Like that is a lot of money because we know they brought in the allegedly brought in the branch manager that was a friend, but did they have to pay some other people off too? Because there were what, only 38 employees?
Yeah, it was. But did we end up mentioning the branch manager?
A little bit. I just mentioned it like in one brief sentence earlier. Because what did she do exactly? I know she became a part of the complaint, but I didn't dig into what her role was or what it could have been. I'm thinking she's one of the ones that may have covered it up, found out, and then they said, "Here, we'll pay you off too."
Yeah. For them to bring her in, they would have had to have found something going
Yeah.
into her account. Because what was her
Yeah.
name? Tina Fuentes.
Because I think they added her to the complaint in March of this year, I believe.
Oh, she received a Tesla, designer handbags, jewelry, travel on a private aircraft, and other gifts and benefits allegedly paid for with diverted credit union funds.
Ah, so the Tesla was for her. Gotcha. I thought the Tesla was for the husband and wife. Okay.
And they
Gotcha.
must have did an amended filing after Tina. They found out about Tina because the amended filing suggests regulators believe some of the allegedly misappropriated funds were transferred to or used for the benefit of third parties, creating potential avenues for asset recovery. So they could be adding more people if they found more.
Yeah. I'm guessing you would have to. A 38 people banking operation. What would you say they had two branches? So
Three. The main
three,
office
two.
and two branches.
Yeah, because you got to think. So the people at the branches have to really understand how the back office deposit operations work because they were probably really close. Eh, Yeah, I just don't see how, with it being that small, you could have gotten away with it without someone recognizing what was happening.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
That is,
that's a lot of money for a little credit union.
yeah. Well, and then think about all the things that they've had in Jackson, Mississippi. I don't know if you've ever been to Jackson, Mississippi before.
No.
So I had the pleasure of working in Jackson, Mississippi for a while. So a bank that I worked for when I was in banking, we had a subsidiary, a huge ATM company in Jackson, Mississippi.
Okay.
And so I was the director of stocks for the bank, and I spent a lot of time in Jackson. Um, I often wondered, where does the money come from in Jackson? Because there's a lot of money there, and you look around and you're like, where does the money come from? Now, back in the day, WorldCom was located there; it was headquartered there. Um, but other than that, I don't think even the state of Mississippi has a Fortune 500 company. I don't think
Oh,
they've
really?
had one since WorldCom. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, it's nothing saying that she participated in the accounting entries or initiated any of the wire transfers. So just it does, but it's not really saying what part she had. So maybe you were right. Maybe she was the one that uncovered it.
that's what I'm thinking. Okay, so a lesson or a message to our auditors. Here's what I think. I think mismatches matter. Now, not every mismatch is fraud, but every mismatch deserves an explanation. If you
Mhm.
see that one piece of documentation says one thing and another piece says another, but they should equal, then you owe it to your organization to look into it. You reconcile them, you confirm them, you ask who created the record, who changed the record, who approved it, who had access, something.
Mhm.
Um, the other message that I would say is independent evidence matters because all it would have taken is somebody to send a letter to Raymond James and asked, "Did you send us? Like, is this really on deposit with you? Is this an investment that you have for us?" Um, and then the other thing I would say is power requires oversight.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of times we get afraid of people with power. We're too afraid to ask questions. We're too afraid to speak up. Um, People with real power who aren't doing anything wrong, they don't mind answering questions.
Right.
You
And
know?
I would, yeah, and I would add to that. You are right on the ball, right? Number one, data is your friend. If something is increasing or something just looks off, Rob's advice, ask questions. Ask questions to where you understand. If somebody knows what they're doing, they should be able to explain it to you to make you understand exactly what they're doing. And don't rush through. Look at some of the tiny details. Like, for all we know, it could have been off. Like, they could have recreated an invoice or something from Raymond James and the settlement date would have been off. Settlement date could have been a Sunday. That just didn't make sense. Why are you settling it on a Sunday? Nobody's open on a Sunday. Like, just look at those little one-offs. And
Yeah.
ask. Yeah.
And that's why I say most times people with some sort of power, I don't care how large or small, if they're not if they are being honest, they don't mind explaining something to you. I tell you what. So think about this. In our career as auditors, we've had to audit some things that we didn't fully understand. We understood them conceptually, and then you have to ask questions, right? I remember the first time I had to audit secondary marketing operations in a bank. Now, for those of you who don't know what that is, I'm going to oversimplify it, but essentially, whenever you borrow money from a bank, you have to pay back a certain amount of principal and interest over time. And that interest is essentially part of the bank's profit. Again, I'm oversimplifying it. But here's what banks do. They'll take mortgages that have similar characteristics. Say, like if Christine and I both had homes that were about the same size, about the same dollar amount, about the same interest rate, they would take my loan, Christine's loan, Thomas's loan, put them together in a security, a package, put them all together, and then sell them off. And the person that buys that loan would be guaranteed a certain principal and interest stream over time. But the way all that works is so complex because you literally have hundreds and thousands of loans all together in one package. And the reason you do that is because, say, if a couple of loans go bad and they foreclose, it really won't hurt the overall payment stream, right? Now, imagine not understanding that and having to audit it for the very first time. Here's what happened to me, though. Some people in that office, in that secondary marketing office, they said, "You've never audited this before, have you?" And I said, "No." And this was back before the internet. So I had books from the Mortgage Bankers Association and I had read about it theoretically. But I had a few people, the VP in that department, she told her people, she said, "Sit him down, walk him through the process." And I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. I saw them on the phone making trades, settling trades at the end of the day. Yeah, man, they showed me everything. This is what I mean, though. If you are a leader and you are honest, you don't mind showing people what it is that you're doing. Because even during that audit, once I got a good understanding of it, we still found some things that were, kind of off. And when I brought it to her, I said, "Hey, you telling me this is what's supposed to happen and how it's supposed to happen. Here's what I'm seeing." And she said, "Oh, yeah, that, and it was a very pleasant experience, one that could have been very uncomfortable, but
Yeah, I learned so much from being an examiner. Like that, I loved that job. Like it was fast paced, don't get me wrong. But man, did I learn fast. And I learned a lot. Yeah, because my biggest thing was asset liability management, ALM.
oh,
Yeah. And now I love it. Now, like, the concepts just kind of flow and I understand it. But yeah, don't be afraid to learn new stuff. Question it. You never know what you might find.
yeah. And again, the person that is offended by your questions is probably the person you want to look out for. I, I call those the how dare you people. As soon as you ask a question, they say, how dare you ask that question? Okay, well, what's the answer?
Right.
So, whew, okay. I don't have anything else on this one. Did I miss anything?
No, I'm just glad it was caught before. I mean, she didn't have much more money to run through, but
Well, that's the thing. What was the plan? Like after all the, what was the?
I don't know. I always want to ask. Always kind of want to ask the CEO that left beforehand. Like I always want to ask them thoughts. Do you know what I'm saying? But I mean, it's no
Yeah.
different than anybody who does something wrong, like people that were closest or people that like gave them that opportunity. Like, what do you think about this?
Yeah,
But I think it'll just reiterate something that I tell people all the time. There is no trust. There is no trust when it comes to working at a financial institution. I mean, there's trust, right? It's the trust but verify sort of a thing.
No.
But I have always sat there and heard like it's always, they were just such the nicest person. I would have never expected that from them. Like I absolutely loved working with them. It's like, well, of course it's not going to be the mean person in the office that's ripping them off, because then everybody would be like, oh, I totally could see that, right? They're just like us. You just don't know who it is. So if something doesn't look right as well, speak up, ask questions. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Well, all right, folks. Thank you for joining us this week. I know it's been several weeks. I've been traveling and training. So, but we should be around now, back at it to have some fun. And I forgot to message Stephanie. Doggone it. Anyway.
Oh, do it next week.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us this week on the Friday Froster. We will see you next week.
Bye.